Fellow Ghanaians, good evening to all of you, and thank you very much for joining us here on Upfront on the Joy News channel. So lots of issues being discussed in Ghana today, from the IGP's letter to the British High Commissioner, where she's admonished to mind her own business. In fact, the IGP says, "Diwufiasem," to issues about a planned demonstration by Fix the Country, where they want to bring armed private security to protect them, since they say they cannot trust the police. And I know there are lots of you who have been focusing on all of these issues. You've asked yourself whether the IGP acted properly, or whether, the fact that what he did is exactly the way to go. Some of you have said the response apt. We've heard Professor Kwesini make that particular point. But of course, the NDC says this is regrettable. I don't know what your thoughts are this evening, but there's one thing I want us to concern ourselves with. Something political. So at the beginning of the year, the NPP started another slogan: break the 8, or breaking the 8. Since the return to democratic rule, no party has served more than 2 consecutive terms. So I'm sure you can understand why it is very important for the NPP to be the ones to make history. And so you've seen the NPP championing candidates. You've seen supporters of John Allan Kojo Tramanting saying he's the one to break the 8, and you've seen supporters of Vice President Dr. Bawumia saying he's the one to break the 8. Of course, there are other contestants in the race to breaking the 8, if I could put it that way. But in making this history, many have asked for a change in the crop of executives. Now, while there were changes during the constituency elections, that cannot be said to be the case in the regional elections. Now, the regional elections held from Friday, the 27th of May, to Sunday, the 29th of May, saw 12 regional chairmen maintain or retain their positions. Now, if you go to the regions, you realize that it is only in the Bono East and Western North regions that these chairpersons could not maintain their seats. In the Eastern region, the NPP's chairman decided not to seek re-election. But let me ask a very important question this evening. As a party that won with almost 1 million votes in the 2016 election, reducing that to 500,000 votes, the NPP in 2016 with 169 seats in Parliament, and currently with 137 seats. Can these old guards be trusted to help the NPP break the 8? In the Ashanti region, we're told some 26% of delegates believe it would be difficult for the NPP to break the 8. This evening, we're joined by Dr. Smart Sapong, who is head of research at the Kumasi Technical University. He conducted that research. He's been doing a lot of research into the NPP's regional election, particularly in the Ashanti region, and that's why he'll be joining us via Zoom shortly. We'll also be joined by Dr. Asa Asante of the University of Ghana Political Science Department, because it's important for us to understand, for instance, in the Ashanti region, in the Greater Accra region, same chairman maintained. And if you look at the Greater Accra region, for instance, in 2016, the NPP won 21 seats. Now, by 2020, that had reduced to 14. In the Ashanti region, there was a talk of Agenda 47. Out of the 47 constituencies, the NPP held 44 in 2016. It said, we want to win all seats in the Ashanti region, which happens to be the World Bank of the NPP. Well, that did not happen, and while it didn't happen, the NPP could not even increase the number or maintain the number. What it did was to rather lose 2 additional seats, and thus had 42 seats in the Ashanti region. Let's get on to Zoom, where Dr. Smart Sapong is joined us. Good evening, Dr. Sapong, and thank you very much for joining us.
Hi, good evening, Winston. Thanks for having me.
Great. So I know that you've been conducting a lot of research into elections in the Ashanti region, but I want to understand How come 26% of delegates who are your respondents in this research have a difficulty in believing their own party to break the 8? What reasons do they give you?
All right. So good evening to your cherished viewers. And a lot of reasons went into what makes them not to believe. But just to encourage them, I feel 73% believing is a good start. Only that if you are a party seeking to do history, break the 8, then you should be worried that 26% of your own delegates, those who you will be relying on to go down there and canvass vote for you, do not believe in what the entire party seeks to believe in. So I added this to my study just to let them know the facts on the ground. That yes, break the 8, but not all of their own delegates even believe the party can break the 8. The reasons range from events of the previous election, the immediate past election, to some other generic problems that they feel government must pay attention to and address. Reference to the previous election, they look at some areas where the party actually fell and fell greatly. In fact, in the whole of Ashanti region, you can take out 3 constituencies where they did some gain, but many of the other places lost a lot of seats. The only 3 places where average votes gained was a gain in terms of percentages was only Adansi Asokwa, Setrafram Plains, and then Oforikrum. Setrafram Plains was overall best in Ashanti with plus 5.5 percentage gain. Setrafram Plains drop on, so followed by Adansi Asokwa, where your friend Katie Hammond is. They followed with a percentage increase of plus 2.5. Then Oforikrum gained marginally with a percentage of 0.1 positive. All other constituencies in Ashanti suffered a net loss, with the West being Manso Edubia losing as much as 17.3 percentage points. So the net loss in Manso Edubia was negative 17.3, the highest ever in the history of Manso Edubia in the whole of Ashanti. Overall, the net loss in Ashanti, negative 3.5, and the entire nation also lost about negative 2.5. So these are the starting points, the baseline for this new crop of executives. They are actually inheriting losses, and some of the delegates are of the view that it's a very big hurdle for the new executives to manage. But then they still have to put it out so that if they are willing to work.
Yes, but while they're starting from a position of loss, now the loss was also brought about by these persons who are in charge, and so you have some of the members of the executive, particularly in the Ashanti region, maintaining their seats. Key amongst them is the regional chairman of the party, Bernard Ntwibu-Esiako, popularly known as Chairman Wontumi. So with him still steering the affairs of the party, with all the concerns that had been raised about him prior to the elections, which he eventually won, do the delegates feel that these problems that they encountered would be dealt with to enable them, improve upon the votes they had in 2020?
Yes, it appears the delegates do believe. They recall, and in my visit to many of the constituencies, they would recall for you the efforts, the singular effort, of course, together with his team at that time, of Chairman Wontumi in 2014, ahead of the 2016 elections, and even events during the 2016 election, how he played a very significant role in the victory of 2016, but admit that he made a lot of mistakes in 2020. What gave them the confidence to vote for him, the visits I made to the constituencies, was the fact that they believe with he admitting to some of the things he might have done wrong in 2020, he places himself in a very good position to correct those mistakes. And then when he adds on his charisma, resilience, and the other things that goes in his favor, he can be a very good leader going into 2024. So in my view, the election of Chairman Wontumi came with a lot of balances, but it tilted in his favor because, yeah, he admitted in many cases he accepted his mistakes and assured them that he's going to correct some of them. So when he adds that to his already existing charisma and his agility and resilience, the delegates felt that he was going to be a very better person. There was this common tree adage that the delegates kept using. They said, so they feel after supervising the fall of some of the votes in Ashanti, he can better correct them, and then with the experience and the other things that goes in his favor, they believe he can lead them very well into 2024.
But believing is one thing, making sure that it actually comes to pass is another.
Absolutely.
Now, if we look at it, and we're going to expand the conversation, yes, even though you have done a research in the Ashanti region, I just want us to, start from the Ashanti region. There's the party's World Bank, and then when we move to, Accra, we'll also be joined by Dr. Asa Asante. So the 26% who doubt, I mean, you've talked about a few issues. I want to understand what these issues are, because if the NPP would win elections, the Ashanti region would play a major role. What are those issues they raise with you?
All right. So I share, I'm unable to share, but I wanted to share the dynamics of the extent of belief or otherwise in the various areas. And you realize that some of the areas comes with known characteristics like poor roads, blah, blah, blah. And they tell you if they want to even go and campaign with nothing to show, they don't believe the people would receive them. So they don't think it's going to be possible. Typical of such areas where Bosome Frehun, where they are still in a disbelief as to how come a single road that stretches most part of the district, is about 36 kilometers, have still not seen any ordinary surfacing, not to talk of asphalt or anything. And they think their cries have not been heard by the government. Some other constituencies share common sentiments. And then there is this also bit of the unseen projects or uncompleted projects, many of which they think are common projects that the government could have done to appease the people. Ordinary water projects, simple toilet projects, basic things which could have been handled. They say it's under the 1 million per constituency project. So they were expecting the various belts, the middle belt, to actually be up and doing. And they fear that if things continue this way, even whatever they do, it will still be difficult for them to campaign. So they were calling on the government to be up and doing. The government can, rely on the fact that some 73% still believe, and then do these things for the various communities so that you can get a holistic belief, the 100% belief that breaking the 8 is possible. If the delegates come to that level, then they can, with that same belief, go down there and canvass for vote for the government. So the government should please do things.
But before you get to the government, and this 26 who believe it's going to be difficult.
Yeah.
Now, wouldn't that in itself affect their ability to campaign, because they're starting from a position of disbelief, aren't they?
Yes, I'm with you. I'm with you 100% on that. And that is why in my earlier presentation on your station, I called on the elected that they have not come at a good time. They have come at a time where even the belief, the ordinary level of believing that breaking the 8 is possible, is not shared by all of them. A lot of them believe in breaking the 8, but they should not neglect hoping 26% who are not yet at the level of belief. So they should step down, go to constituency by constituency, appreciate their problems, and inspire them. Can inspire them by completing some of these projects for them, inspire them by making them know you understand them, giving them some assurances, timelines to completing some of these things they are looking up for, so that they can come to the same level. If the 73% who think breaking the 8 is possible go about dancing, neglecting the 26%, it will affect the fortunes of the party in Ashanti region.
Now, this number that we talk about, you've given a reason, and that's development. So poor infrastructure. A lot of people feel that they do not have the kind of infrastructure which they deserve. We know the situation we find ourselves in currently as a country. In fact, we're tightening our belts. We're tightening our belts to ensure that we are able to spend within the fiscal space that we have. Now, if that's the situation, then it will tell you that we may not be able to do so much. Doesn't that in itself lead to the conclusion that breaking the 8 for the NPP would be very, very difficult considering the current economic conditions in which we find ourselves?
President, is going to be difficult. Whoever assumes that is going to be easy will not be fair to himself, will just be trying to excite himself. Even if the economic condition was not as bad as this, you know, this historical cycle of incumbency fatigue, anytime you spend 2 terms and all those things. So coupled with the current situation, the NPP, I'm sure, is aware that breaking the 8 is not going to be very easy. The good news is that at the base, they tell you, at least in the midst of the scarce resource, in the midst of the difficulty, if you are able to do this, that, at least 3 things per constituency, or some of them don't even need much. Some of them you can waste them. You'll be surprised that there are boreholes that are dug up to a point. Some finishing touches needs to be put to it, and the people are happy, and they don't have. I visited a place where in the entire constituency, only 3 towns within the constituency, including the capital, has access to electricity. They think within 5 years, at least some 2 or 3 more towns or villages should have been added to the grid. And they feel like if government should do something like this for us, it will be enough for us to break the 8 in our constituency. You know, I try to assess breaking the 8 constituency by constituency, so that if these things are addressed and constituencies are breaking the 8, then we can be sure that breaking the 8 is possible. So they have to come down. The elected executives have a very big task to do. Go down, have these essentials that they need, cost them. For all you know, it may not cost much. This standpipe thing I was talking about. In our various homes, we have boreholes. I don't know how much their boreholes may cost, such that it will last for almost 5 years and they still lament and cry over petty. Very, very simple toilet facility. You know, the one district, 1 million per constituency projects are not too, in my view, not too expensive kind of projects, but a lot of them are still left unattended. Only few in Ashanti region have been completed. Many, they will tell you it's at 20% completion, blah, blah, blah. Some cannot even be traced. I think these are basic things that the government can do in the midst of the scarcity we all know, in the midst of the hardship we all know. Some of these constituencies are still looking up to government for some petty things. You know, Ashanti region is the breadbasket of the NPP, so they don't really need much to revamp their enthusiasm. So government can look at them.
Well, government can look at them, finally on the Ashanti region, because we'll be expanding the conversation. Dr. Asah-Asante will be joining us shortly via Zoom. So let's look at something. Now, in the Ashanti region, you've spoken to delegates. But when you listen on the ground, when you speak to party members, do they also have a feeling that this is not going to be possible?
Unfortunately, I've not spoken to party members. My assumption was that if the delegates are adequately motivated, they would step up and with all enthusiasm canvass for vote. A lot of things go into elections. Sometimes on the D-Day, the people may forget about a lot of things and look up to petty things. So it starts with the constituency executives. They are only 17. My assumption is that they carry 35% of the total voting population of each constituency. I have an elevation factor I estimated of about 1.6, so I round it up to 2. And if each is carrying 2% minimum of the voting population of the constituency, then multiply by the 17, we have a minimum average of about 35% of the constituency votes attributed to the work done by constituency executives. That's per my own estimation. If 35% of the votes to be accrued by any political party is attributable to the work done by the constituency executives, then they need to up to the level of believing in breaking the 8 so that they can work towards it. If they work towards it, about 35% of the votes are already in the basket of the winning party. Okay. And then their rippling effect, the work they do would yield for them extra. Even if they do up to twice their ability and they get 70%, for a political party to get 70% of the registered votes, I think it's a big margin.
Well, the challenge is that whenever the NPPs had 70%, does not help to. I mean, the NPP needs a lot more votes in the Ashanti region to actually guarantee it winning the election. But let me get to Dr. Asante, who's also joined as via Zoom, and he believes that look, with the NPP maintaining a lot of these old guards, they should forget breaking the 8. Dr. Asante, good evening, and thank you very much for joining us. Why do you think that it's almost like a lost battle now that they've maintained a lot of their regional chairman?
Yes, it's not a lost battle, but I'm saying that if you look at the performance of last election against the new leaders who have been elected regionally across the country, you realize that almost all the people who were in place at that time are now have been voted into office. Yeah. So my question is, what new thing are they going to bring to board? Because they were here when the NDC tsunami swept over 30 to 34 ministers and deputy ministers. That tells you that there was a problem at the constituency, there was a problem at the regional level, and there was a problem at the national level. One would have thought that if for nothing at all, the constituency or the district for that matter did not see anything that was going to happen in terms of vote loss with parliamentary seats, the region would have arrested the situation and dealt with that. But that also escaped, or the region could not see. So if you have elected these people, the same people as regional executive, then they have a daunting task. The task that they need to convince themselves that this time around, they've seen what has gone wrong, and they are ready to right the wrongs. Otherwise, it's going to be difficult for them. NDC will be feeling that, yes, these are people that will beaten them to it. The current parliament, composition of parliament is a manifestation of the work that they did in that area. So if that has not changed, then I'm afraid they need to convince themselves that they have something new that they are bringing on board. Otherwise, look, it's going to be a difficult one for them.
When you say they need to convince themselves, I mean, for them, in seeking re-election, it's definitely the conviction that they have something more to offer the party, and whatever they have to offer the party would be that new thing they think they are going to bring on board. But beyond they convincing themselves, based on the decision the party is taking, when I say the party is taking this decision, I mean by voting for these persons, what sort of signal is the party sending?
It's sending the signal that, yes, whether they're agitation or not, you have voted for these people. So they are the true representation of the people in that constituency, in that region, in that area. Yes, once you get that, then you are in a mood to say that, yes, all is well. Remember that there have been agitations around in some of the areas that the party need to handle. Let us be fair to the party that we saw similar problems when the earlier elections were conducted. And this time around, we realized that even though we have a few places such as the northern region and the rest of them, it has reduced considerably. That shows that a word had gone around to tell them that, look, it is not a good thing to fight within the same party and all that. But beyond the NPP itself, let us remember that this is intra-party elections. You are now going outside the party to the general, to the whole country, so to speak. And there, you need to really put your house in order in such a way that you'll be able to derive maximum votes from other people from the various constituencies. And that you need to do that. So you realize that they have a lot of homework to do if they are supposed to maintain their lead. Let us also remember that there are elections about contest of ideas and referendum of your work. Yeah, it is not enough to say that, yes, we have voted the team into office. The team must begin to work and support the government to succeed so that the government record will be there for whoever emerges as a flag bearer to stand on it and then campaign for votes. We also know that the last election, through the manifesto, a lot of promises were made. Look at the short period that is ahead of us towards 2020. Are they sure that they are going to meet all the promises that they give to the people of this country? These are going to form the building blocks for the messages and then the campaign for 2024. So you realize that it is not that simple that you said you have put that team into office and that the team is going to deliver. We saw in 2020 when Ashanti region, for instance, Chairman Wontumi said that he's going to deliver 47 seats for the people, the NPP in Ashanti region. And we saw what happened, all right? We saw other places such as Greater Accra, where the party performed abysmally low and all that. All these things put together, you realize that it put a lot of work on the hands of NPP leaders who have been voted into office, that, hey, the battle is extremely difficult for them, especially when you are incumbent and you have been in office for 2 times and people believe that there are a lot that you need to show to the people in terms of your work, and they are not seeing that. Then there's a problem.
We'll have to go for a short break, but when we return, one of the things I want us to look at is, whether or not, but for money, many of these persons would have lost, and whether or not, but for the upcoming presidential primaries also, the party may have considered changing all of these. This is Upfront on the Joy News channel. My name is Winston Amma, and this evening our focus is on the NPP. We're asking the question, can the old guards help the NPP break the 8 as it seeks to do in 2024? My guest is Dr. Smart Sapong of the Kumasi Technical University. He's conducted a research that indicates that 26% of delegates in the Ashanti region do not believe that a party would break the 8. We've also been joined by Dr. Asa Asante, who is a political science lecturer at the University of Ghana. Stay with us. We'll be right back after these messages. Right, so welcome back, and thank you very much for staying with us here on Upfront on the Joy News channel. I'm Winston Aman. This evening we're joined by Dr. Kwame Asa Asante of the Political Science Department of the University of Ghana and Dr. Smart Sapong of the Kumasi Technical University. Our focus on the NPP. We're asking whether the elections of, the old guards, 12 regional chairmen maintaining their seats, and so we want to find out whether this can help them break the 8. Now, Dr. Asa Asante, let's get back to the question I asked earlier before the break. So I just wanted to find out, but for money, would the situation have been different?
Money is gradually becoming a factor in Ghanaian politics. Take it or leave it. Because political elites have found it as a clever way to, induce, of course, not all of them, some of them, induce voters and influence them to vote in a certain direction. And there is also the support of voters who, some of them believe that, yes, once you dole out money, we'll vote for you. this has really contributed to some of the problems we have in political parties, in grassroots politics, that people do not listen to messages. People did not listen to manifestos, but they go in for money, 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 and then that sometimes changes the chemistry in politics. And it is a fact in Ghanaian politics that nobody can deny that. We see it time and again. So money is a factor. But apart from money, all right, which I put into, I have three variables that are very, very important when you are looking at how to win power. I have, give them acronym RSM, resources, and money comes in strongly here. But the personnel, who are those leading the charge? Are they people who are popular? Do they have track record? Do they have what it takes to lead a particular constituency or a particular group of people? All right, that is another thing that is worth investigating. Not only that, but also the M, we are talking about what? Manifesto and messages, and they are very important. And it's a function of the research that you have done to be able to gauge the mood of the people, know their needs, and then get all those data, and then out of which you build messages that will resonate with the people for them to give them their vote. It is important that if you really want to win elections, you cannot focus solely on money that, yes, you are using to influence people or not. But what's your strategy? All right, strategy counts a lot. The S is a strategy. What strategy are you going to put in place to counter your opponent? What is it that the opponent has, which you think he has an upper hand against you, and for which reason you have also devised a strategy that you are going to counter? There are messages that parties will churn out. What will be your response? Some of them attacking you, attacking your records, attacking certain personality and all that. Do you have answers for them? And these are critical questions that party must listen to when they want to. So all these things will come to play in the campaign. If it is not packaged and done properly, I'm afraid then the battle becomes difficult, and it becomes the battle.
And talking about the battle being difficult, Dr. Asah-Asante, so let's look at the regional elections. We saw in the Ashanti region, for instance, allegations of vote buying. And we've read stories of one of the candidates actually coming out to say he paid 1,000 Ghana cedis to each delegate seeking to be chairman of the NPP in the Ashanti region, and still polled only 20 votes out of the over 800 persons who voted. We have read stories and have heard allegations of 40,000 per constituency, 10,000 per delegate. This is huge. Now, based on these allegations, and in one of the instances, the man who gave out the money saying, "This is what I did." How do the other issues of resources and strategy, play a role in a regional election, which was mainly decided by who could pay more?
You are not sure, you are not certain that it's only money that influenced voter choices. That I know for sure, you are not certain. Other variables came to play. How long have you worked as a faithful servant of the party? All right. Have you supported a party through thick and thin and all that? For party people, they look at these things, and then it's part of the reason why they give you their vote, in addition to what other factors that I've mentioned, including what resources. All right. So it's not something that hinges on only one variable. There are a number of them, but your pedigree, your support for the party, your organizational skills, they all come to play. If you dole out money, and out of which you think you have won the election, let's wait for the national one and see whether in the constituency, how much resources do you have to dole out to all voters there to vote for you? Is it the case that even people who receive money, they will vote for you? So you see a lot of things will come in. There are instances where people even pay money and people vote against them. And when it goes beyond, parties, that is outside the political parties to the national domain, then it becomes a different ball game altogether.
But you know, Doc, talking about certainty, so I've been speaking to members of the various campaign teams, and one thing I am certain of is that in different regions, I was talking to persons who lost in the Western region, persons who won in the Western region, persons who even won in the Ashanti region, and there's one thing they tell me. Their decision was very simple. Do all the campaigning. On the day of the election, find money, give the delegates, and you win. I've spoken to people who have said to me, look, I went around all the constituencies. They assured me, they promised me they were going to vote for me. I knew that money was going to be a factor. But because of the promise of the people that they were going to vote for me, I thought I was going to win. On the day, or on the night before the elections, ahead of my other contender paying money, and I couldn't match how much he was paying. The delegates told me, we're sorry, but if you can't match it, then we can't vote for you, because you politicians, we are not sure of what you would do for us if we vote for you, so pay us now. So that's a situation on the ground based on...
Yeah, you can have such a situation. There's no doubt about that. But are you saying that out of all the areas that the voting took place, this is what happened, and that was the most single item that influenced voter choice? I'm finding
out from you your thoughts on this particular issue, whether, but for the money factor, the results we're seeing could have been different. That's what I want to find out from you.
Yes, I'm saying that has a role to play in voter choices. That I cannot dismiss that fact. But there are other considerations, all right? If you are a leader that they believe you are not trustworthy, and that you don't galvanize support for the party, things that you do, they are not are not in the interest of what the party rank and file and all that. You can dole out all manner of money, all right? They will throw you out. So yes, it has an influence, but the magnitude is something that we can debate about it. But there are other considerations, right? If we limit the conversation to that, then we are saying that anytime we go for election, let's look for money and you win. But is that the case? If the person is not marketable, if the person doesn't have organizational skills, if the person doesn't, has not supported the party, has not been in the party, has not worked for the party, obviously people will throw him out and look for somebody who can be a real organizer to be able to galvanize support for the party. Let us also remember that, yes, this type of election is intra-election. When you go to the national one, you need to have your strategic, skills on to be able to, get more, win more souls to join the party. You need to be able to galvanize support effectively for the party. You need to be able to campaign effectively. You need to be able to do a lot. So you realize that there, money will become a difficulty.
We'll look at that, yes.
Your only variable for consideration.
We'll look at the national election bit shortly, but let's look still with the intra and look at the presidential primaries of the NPP, the upcoming primaries. What role would you say it played in the choices that were made at the regional level?
Definitely, all those who really want to contest or have shown interest of contesting for the flag bearership role, they have their men on the ground that they are rooting for. They are supporting for them to win constituency positions or regional positions, so that at the end of the day, when it comes to the real vote for those people, they will be there for them. So that homework, they've all done that. And they are waiting for the day that whoever has a lot of following in such areas will emerge victorious if your plan, your strategy, your resources, everything works very well. Then you will carry the day. So all of them, those who have shown interest that they really want to contest, they are very much interested in this type of election because that's the game changer.
And did this interest in any way influence the outcome of the elections?
Definitely so. Imagine you have a place where 20 people are there and all are your men who are going to vote. You can sleep with your two eyes closed firmly that look, plus or minus, you are going to get about 18 from them. That is your World Bank. So when they are able to do that across the nook and cranny of this country, then they are sure of victory. So it's one of the strategies that they employ that get your men on the ground, get them ready so that during elections, you can trust that the majority of the votes will come from them. And then you campaign to win more souls to join the group that you already have existing within the region or the constituency.
Let me bring in Dr. Smart Sapong, and I'll get back to you shortly, Dr. Asante. So, Dr. Sapong, let me ask you the same question, particularly in the Ashanti region where you are. But for money, would the results have been any different?
All right. Thanks for the question. I align with the explanation given by Dr. Asante to the extent that other factors were also equally important, much as money too was. My interaction with the delegates, I tried to find out about the extent to which money can influence the decisions they would be making. And a lot of them made me aware that money would not be the deciding factor for them. They are looking at their main opposition party, NDC, which appears to be their main target. They have to beat them to it, blah, blah, blah. But then they were quick to add that, Doctor, you know, we too, we campaigned, we went around before others voted for us to become constituency executives. We spent a lot. So if somebody comes and give us something, definitely we will take. But then that is not going to be the deciding factor. So anybody who visited the executives at their various constituencies was expected. The executives were expecting them to give us something, no matter how. They didn't have any price. So you have to, but it will be against you greatly if you went there without giving them anything. That is one thing I observed. From the comments that were coming, they were actually expecting everybody who visited them to give them something to, as they said, to go and defray some of the costs they too have incurred in contesting for constituency elections. So to some extent, I would say that anybody who went there and gave them nothing would suffer, and anybody who went them and gave them something small was also likely to suffer. And that is the extent to which I agree with you if you think money played a role. But again, I agree with Dr. Asante to the extent that a lot of other factors, especially in Ashanti region, I think the research I gave, the report I shared with the public a week before the election suggested that all other factors were going to play out. But the one key factor that was going to decide the day in favor of Chairman Wuntibi was the fact that the delegates still, many of the delegates still feel he's gotten a certain strength and charisma that will put the NDC in check come 2024. And that thing ran through almost all the 47 constituencies I visited. They would say all the side issues about Chairman Wuntibi and his this, it's not that, but only that he is able to put the NDC in check, so we may consider blah, blah. You know, they will not tell you exactly, but I waited all the responses I got. And prior to the election, I predicted a 57.8% win for Chairman Wuntibi, and it was so confirmed on the day. So to me, as a researcher, to me, as somebody who engaged with the constituencies, I know there were many other factors, including money, but I also knew way ahead of time that irrespective of what would happen on the D-Day, even if other contestants, like, for example, the three who altogether secured 4%, if any of them had gotten the largest amount of money ever to be donated on the final day, none of them was going to win. None of them was going to win. So, yes, money may play a role, but it largely may not decide who wins the election. Mind you, Winston, these are delegates, constituency executives elected amongst many possible other candidates. So it tells you they have a certain level of trust with the people, they have a certain level of integrity, they are wise to a certain level, such that if we stretch it to the extent that it was only money, we may be perhaps contesting their integrity or those things. But largely it played out. Only that I agree with Dr. Asante, it wasn't the decider. There are people who took money from Chairman Wuntibi, no matter the amount, that still did not vote for him. And there are also people who took money from Odeno Kwakwapia here in Ashanti and still did not vote for him. So yes, it balances out, and it ended up that for the fact that they think Chairman Wuntibi has a certain character that may put the NDC to check, they should vote for him. Yes, I think here in Ashanti, that's largely what played out. But this culture that we have to actually speak against, you have been speaking against since day one, the monetization of political activities here in Ghana. Gradually, Winston, if we don't take care, it will be constitutionalized, it will be coded, it will be made legal. It is illegal. It is illegal. To date, our laws frown on inducement. Our laws frown on some of these things. But they started somewhere in 2004. It wasn't so much prominent. But somewhere 2008 coming, we saw money actually playing.
Okay. Let me bring in Dr. Asante at this point. And let's look to the elections, the national elections of the NPP. Based on what you have seen, Dr. Asante, based on what you've seen happening at the regional levels, you've heard some make the point that, you know, the party should consider changing all national executives. Based on what you've seen at the regional level, do you foresee that happening?
Changing all the national executives of the NPP?
Yes.
Is that what you are saying? Or?
Yes. I mean, there's been a campaign, advocacy that, the current crop of executives should be changed in its quest to break the aid. That based on what you see at the regional level, do you foresee this happening?
I don't think so. I don't think so, because some will lose the election, obviously, at the national level, and some will be retained. All right. But the question is, you can change all your leaders and still lose the election, and you win the election. All right. It depends upon one, the candidate you are putting forward for people to vote for. Is it that one who can attract voters? Does he have a message that resonates with the people? What strategy that this time around he's going to bring to convince people that he has come of age and that he will be able to meet the opposition boot for boot? Yes. What message has he got which has born out of research indicating the very problems that the people face within the national level that he's in to address? All these things are important variables when you are looking for a suitable candidate to contest the election. Obviously, some of the leaders, the national leaders, will pass this test. Some will fail. Those who will come in, it is incumbent upon them to show their might during the election, that when they come face to face with opposition, they will be able to stand the test of the day. That is all there is to it. Any other consideration will be if you are in government, all right, then incumbency advantage and the work that you have done. But much depends upon the work that you have done. If you look at this country, there are a number of factors that also people consider, aside what I've said, that really determine their choice of what leadership or leaders. Take, for instance, the economy. Okay. All right. At the national level, you can never win any election when you are in government and you perform abysmal in terms of how you manage the economy, irrespective of political parties, tradition, ideology, other preferences and all that. Everybody believes that, look, we need the economy to be buoyant for us to make a living.
So if that's the point, Dr. Asante, if that's the point, I mean, the point you're making, we know currently the economy is challenged. We know things are hard for us. And so, in effect, you're saying, if things do not change, the NPP should forget it, isn't it?
It's the early day yet. But what I'm saying is that it is an important variable that nobody can gloss over. All right. If we are in government, we want to see results, that the economy is put in proper shape. And that research has shown that if you are not able to build a solid economy, you are going to be in difficulty. The second variable that voters also look at is the issue of what? Development. And here I'm talking about infrastructure development. You are talking about roads, hospitals, and what have you. And cast your mind across the nook and cranny of this country, you realize that, yes, government is doing certain things in terms of development in this direction, but there are a lot of deficits in there. All right. And these are some of the things that they consider so much, and then they will vote against you. Of course, the issue of corruption comes in. Right. And we have seen it. I mean, from Transparency International report, Ghana Integrity Initiative report, and other reports, how, government is struggling to deal with corruption and all that. These things will feature, take it or leave it, in the election. So when you put all these things together, you realize that it is not enough to say that you need to change your leaders at the national level and all that. You can change all of them. But if you don't get the basics that I've said right, I'm afraid you are going to pay a high price for that.
So in effect, the NPP can change its national leaders, but if at the end of it all, by 2024, if Ghanaians do not see development and if the economy as it is currently does not improve, they should forget it.
I can't conclude on that finally, but all that I'm saying is that, look, maybe there is, they can turn things around and then, do a lot to convince the voters. But these are critical things that they need to look at. In addition to the candidate who will emerge as a flag bearer. Is he marketable? Does he, relate very well with the rank and file of his party and then the people of this country? Which constituency is he coming from? In other words, has he got linked with other important areas of the society that people will see him as a favorable candidate that they want to give their power to? Does he have baggage that the party can defend? Let us remember that nobody is 100% clean. You have a few problems here and there, but is it something that the party can defend when that issue comes under attack? Because as a political communication strategist, all right, when you field a candidate, I want to look at his strengths and weaknesses and develop messages that I will churn out and that I want to see your response. They will come one by one. Your inability to deal with them, I throw in more. And then in no time, I'll scatter your candidates, all right, and then you have no leader to lead you. What type of message are they going to have? How sophisticated is the development of the message and all this? And if you look at the last election, I was not surprised that the NPP performance was in that regard. Because prior to the election, you remember the issue of Airbus came up strongly. One would have thought that to get into the election, close to the election, they would drum home that message and influence voter choices. They abandoned it, and they were talking about what? Free SHS, free SHS. Yes, that's a good one. But let us remember that you don't prepare soup with only pepper. There are other ingredients that are important. Once you gloss over them, well, I'm afraid your opponent will capitalize on that and then campaign vigorously. So campaign strategy, campaign messaging is so critical and would, winning elections. So there are a whole lot of factors. But if you are in government, you have a daunting task because people expect that, yes, there is incumbency advantage and that you need to do more. And once people have the signal that you are not doing well, you have lost power completely. And for the opposition, it is not also easy that you only walk, you are just walking toward the Flagstaff House or the Jubilee House for that matter. But you need to do work and you need to showcase your work, save your constituents. The bickering, the rancor within the party, close your ranks.
Okay.
And then develop message that will resonate with the people. Make sure that you carry everybody along. And then make sure also that you take the government on all the weaknesses of government. You don't wait for other people to speak on the issues. You speak on them, expose government weaknesses, and then come out with alternatives. That really convinces voters.
Thank you very much, Dr. Asante. That's all time would allow us. And thank you also, Dr. Smart Sapong, for joining us tonight on Upfront on the Joy News channel. My name is Winston. I'm on behalf of the team. Thank you very much for joining us. Up next is Joy News Prime. Keep watching the Joy News channel.